I think I'm live. I know I'm not even going to do this thing again. All right. So first of all, thank you guys for joining me tonight. Um, and tonight's topic is going to be about libertarianism. All right, I'm going to start off with my personal history with it, go into what it is, and why I no longer call myself that, based on some of the questions I'm going to ask you guys tonight. So, all right, first of all, my personal history with libertarianism. I'm going to start off by talking about Ron Paul. I've always been interested in politics. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I traveled with my grandpa like across country, and we'd listen to talk radio, and he'd share different ideas with me, and I'd share ideas back, and that just kind of like lit a fire under my belly a little bit about of an interest of everything that was going on in the world. And I remember, even though this guy's not libertarian, watching Michael Moore's documentary, Fahrenheit 9/11, was very formative for me in that it made politics entertaining, and it made questioning the truth entertaining. Um, and one of the most formative experiences, though, I had politically when I was younger was Ron Paul. And for those of you who don't know who that is, he was a Republican congressman from Texas who ran for president in both 2008 and 2004. And and he was a Republican, but what really set him apart from other Republicans is that he didn't sound like any other Republican I'd ever heard before. Like, he was anti-war. He was anti-war in Iraq. He was one of the only Republicans to say that the war in Iraq was unconstitutional. He was very pro-civil liberties. He supported smoking weed, or not smoking weed in so much as making weed legal on a federal level. And that was just things I never heard a Republican say before. And the way that he would talk so passionately and like so fervently just made you understand that he was truly an honest politician. Even if his philosophy is flawed, and I'm going to get into that in a second, he really believed what he was saying. And, if you really just want to feel inspired, like, go back and listen to those clips, or watch those clips from the debates in 2008 and 2012, because that guy got booed. Like, he was just getting jeered and booed and insulted while he was on the debate stage. And I've never seen a politician with that kind of brass balls. Again, like, his philosophy, I think, is in some ways flawed, but geez Louise, man. Like, that guy, man, like, honestly, like, I think it's pretty much a fact, which is, by the way, that's always like a precursor to bullshit if someone says, I think it's pretty much a fact. But I'm pretty sure he got the election robbed from him in 2012. Or not the election in so much as he should have been the guy who ran as a Republican in 2012 over Mitt Romney. And yeah, just look into his stuff. He's a very interesting dude. He's retired now. But needless to say, I have migrated from that position of being a hardcore libertarian. So if we really want to go into the discussion of why there's some pitfalls to that philosophy, first of all, we should define it, obviously. So, I've heard libertarians defined as Republicans that smoke weed, Republicans that don't believe in God. It's broadly described as extreme fiscal conservatism combined with extreme social liberalism. So it's a sort of weird hybrid between the two political parties of Republican and Democrat. My favorite summation of the philosophy comes from the 1996 novel The Moon is a Harsh Mistress by Robert Heinlein, which basically states there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. And that basically means, again, there ain't no such thing as a free lunch, means that the idea of free doesn't exist. Like, if a product's made, right, it costs money to manufacture. And if there's a service offered, it costs money to provide. So when a politician or somebody from government uses that word, like free healthcare, free college, free birth control, free food, whatever, that they're being deceptive. And what they're really doing is not making it free, but placing the burden of cost onto somebody else, as opposed to who's actually receiving the service. And that's a form of theft. And that the most free philosophy that exists and the most fair philosophy that exists is that of the free market, just the pure and raw exchange of money, right? And I used to believe that for a long time, and I found myself kind of migrating from that. Like certain things that Donald Trump did in terms of his war with China, Mr. Andrew Yang, also someone that changed my mind. And here's some questions I have. for libertarians? And these are questions that I ask myself, and I decided that I don't call myself a libertarian anymore because the answers that I came up with, I realized that the libertarian philosophy just didn't answer these or didn't have a solution to the problems that these questions present. So, question number one, what's your answer to corporatism, i.e., big businesses get too much power and own the market? And I've never heard another answer from a libertarian to this besides, if you don't like a company, you can go somewhere else. Ultimately, the power of a company is decided by where you spend your money. But the problem with that is that the question of corporatism is predicated upon the fact that a corporate oligarchy has already completely dominated the market, and thus you as a consumer are powerless. Okay, so Walmart and Target get in bed together and create laws to where small businesses can't compete as well, and it doesn't matter. So you quit shopping at Walmart and go to Target, and also, again, the problem of corporatism is predicated on the fact that big corporations have already dominated the market, and it's a proposition where the customer is powerless, and that's something that's already happening. I think it's difficult to argue that doesn't happen. And also, something I thought of was the hashtag shop local, right? Why would we even use the hashtag shop local and hashtag support local businesses if people already did that? And the reason that we have to use those hashtags and remind people to do that is that most of the time they don't. Most of the time they're looking for the cheapest deal. And it's not because they're a bad person. It's because they're not super rich and they need to save money. It's understandable why they do it. But because of that, because they're always looking for the cheapest price, and because they always go to the big Walmarts and Targets and whatever's out there that can provide that, that's what helps create and helps pour into that corporate monopoly I'm talking about. So yeah, question one, what's your answer to corporatism? Okay, question number two, have you considered the cost of free trade? So, in my mind, and free trade basically is, among other things, but I guess the aspect of it that I want to argue about today is the idea that corporations have a right to do businesses with foreign countries and basically take jobs away from American citizens. And I think that this whole free trade philosophy has really kind of screwed the American worker and put China first. And I mean, it's really ironic that people who support this hardcore free market idea don't see how it plays into empowering a communist country. Because again, the corporation, their main goal is to make a profit. And why would they not do business with a country where their workers have no rights and can work day and night, and they don't care if their employees eat, sleep, or shit or piss, and they just need to make the iPhone? And again, I think that when it comes to the responsibility of the government, that its own citizens should come first. It should come before the free market. It should come before profit. We have a right to jobs here in America, and I fully support protectionism. And that's also, I don't agree with how Trump's gone about it 100%. I think he's made some irresponsible choices in his trade war with China, but I do support that. That's an anti-free market idea. And I guess this is sort of the last question I've come up with. Okay, I understand that a social safety net can be costly, but what about the money it saves and also the money that goes back into the market? So one example that I think of when I think of this question is poverty versus crime, right? Most people commit crimes because they're impoverished. So if we have a social safety net to provide some basic goods for people, i.e. helping give food stamps, that means that they're going to rob the convenience store less to pay for food. If we have, a social safety net to provide some basic, other basic goods that I can't think of right now because it's 12:08 in the night and I need to go to sleep, that means that they're not going to sell drugs. I think that, yes, it does cost money, but I also think we get some of that money back in that they're not going to go into the prison system. And also, I think that when we give people money for basic goods like food stamps and whatnot, that money is going to get reinvested in other places. So that money we provide for food, they could spend on shoes. or maybe they could spend going to Applebee's, or maybe they could spend going other places. That gets reinvested back in the economy. So again, the three questions I have for libertarians are: what is your answer to corporatism? Have you considered the cost of free trade? And also how a social safety net kind of, yes, costs money, but also relieves some of the cost in other places that, crime causes a burden on society. Okay, that was, hopefully you get the basic question on the third one. What questions have I overlooked? When it comes to criticizing libertarianism, what benefits have I overlooked when it comes to the good sides of libertarianism? Does anybody listening or watching have a strong opinion on economics? And if so, like, who are some of the people, and what are some of the books or documentaries that you've watched, books that you've read and documentaries you've watched that have helped inform your opinion? Let's see, what am I at right now? 10:56. All right, I'm good. And good night, guys. Okay, Facebook, I am ending the video. Boom.